Welcome to Forward Progress. It's the Week 9 recap, Week 10 look ahead right here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, part of the Hammer Betting Network, powered by Pinnacle Sportsbook. I am Rob Pizzola, a Cowboys fan, wearing a Bengals shirt, winning a bet on the Eagles today, still depressed at what I witnessed in the end game in the Cowboys today, alongside Clive Bixby, a Carolina Panthers fan. Every time I think it can't get worse for the Cowboys, I just think to myself, you know what? It actually can. And it can be the Panthers drafting Bryce Young first overall instead of CJ Stroud. Clive, it was an eventful day. We got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, how did it go for you?
Today, I mean, my bets went great. I had no problem at all. Like it was very weird though at the end of the day, or I'm sorry, right before kickoff today, how many lines moved in ways that I didn't expect them to move. And then the results absolutely did not validate those moves. I mean, that happens. Doesn't mean that the market's necessarily wrong, but it just was it just didn't play out that way today.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really good betting day today, which is nice, first and foremost. And this is not to just like pat myself on the back or whatever, but I think people can like resonate with these feelings every now and then. The thing for me that really bugs me is I'm a big believer in trying to beat the market, right? This is why we do the show on Sunday nights. It's like, all right, let's just talk through the games. As Scott mentioned in the chat last week, we like Mahomes less than a field goal. If they closed an underdog, you got to the window, you won in that game. Buffalo, Cincy total 47 was low. That's up in the 50s now. What else? Minnesota, Atlanta, we thought would get bet down. That didn't. It was 38.5. It went over. Seattle, Baltimore, felt high. Not the greatest call. End up winning that as well. Dallas, Philly, 3, fair. Total, tad low. We got some right, some wrong. But ultimately, when the market like shits on your play, basically, you want to win those, or at least I do, more so than anything else. And that was a big thing for me today. The games where I had the most competition were games that I ended up doing well on. And that makes you just feel good at the end of the day.
Yeah. The last play that I have left today is Bengals -1.5. But I felt that way about the total in KC and Miami. I played under 50.5 early last week, and then that moved against me. And then even today it moved a little bit more. They feel good when you win those. But, you know, it was an odd week for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say in a vacuum that like the Chiefs-Dolphins line was wrong. Ultimately, Chiefs got a defensive touchdown in that game on, I don't want to say a fluke play, but it was like a Tyreek Hill fumble. Ball was stripped. There was a lateral on the play to end up scoring that touchdown. So it wasn't like a box score domination. And it is also a weird game because it's a Germany game where teams traveled at different time. And I know a lot of people just look at the final closing spread and they're like, oh, there's no way that Miami could possibly be better than Kansas City on a neutral. But that's like other things that maybe we can't quantify that somebody had a very strong opinion on, which was like the Frankfurt travel, Miami going out earlier, which has historically been a good spot, getting Teron Armstead back. So there was a lot that went into it, but ultimately it feels so much better to start the day with the win on those, like on these London, Frankfurt games. And so far this year, those have been good for me. So fingers crossed if we have anything next week that happens. But did you end up playing the Chiefs as well in the early game today?
I didn't. I couldn't pull the trigger. Obviously I should have, but I didn't.
It happens. I mean,
Yeah.
like in hindsight, a bad number.
Like I'm sitting there waiting to click the button to be like, this line is just, I don't know how I can't take this. And then I just couldn't get myself to pull the trigger today.
I love this comment from Mickey, which is G-Stack is going to need therapy. So everyone that's on Forward Progress throughout the week is in like a Telegram chat where we just talk during football. G-Stack is actually surprisingly in a very, very good place. He was not in a good place at 21-0, but
no.
Now he's just like, yeah, you know what? We played with the best. It was a pretty even game. So I think he's going to be okay. I think G-Stack is going to be fine for the Monday show tomorrow with Cleve TA and with Suma, but a lot to discuss. For those who are new here, before we get into it, smash that like button down below. If you're not subscribed here on Forward Progress, hit that subscribe button and click that bell. Set notifications going forwards. You'll get notified whenever we go live for content throughout the week. There's a Monday night watch along tomorrow night for the Jets and the Chargers right here on Forward Progress. And if you're listening in audio form after the fact, no problem at all. Just make sure you give us a nice rating, rate and review 5 stars where you can. But for those who are new, don't know how this show works, we're going to recap as much of the day as we can. And when Pinnacle Sportsbook starts opening the lines for next week's game, we'll bring them up on screen one by one. What the current market is, where we anticipate the line movement to happen in these games over the course of the week. They're not open as of yet. Usually they'll open in about 10 or 15 minutes. The reason why we use Pinnacle, one, they pay us and they're sponsors of the show. But two, and a very good reason, is in a lot of cases, you might go bet at a sportsbook on a Sunday night, look ahead lines for the next week or whatever. And a lot of those sportsbooks, they might review your account. This guy's betting early, lower your limits. Pinnacle's not going to do that no matter what. They're offering $3,000 bets on NFL sides on Sunday nights when they open up lines. I'm not saying you have to go and bet $3,000, but you have the option. And if you do bet a lot of money and the line moves in your favor, well, guess what? They're not going to use it against you either. It's a very fair, honorable sports book. So bet smart, bet Pinnacle, your trusted sports book for the past 25 years. And if you do sign up to Pinnacle, use code HAMMER, HAMMER. It does help support the show, and we can continue producing this content going forwards. I think we should talk about the Eagles and Cowboys next, because
okay,
it had the vibes in the early going of maybe Dallas has finally gotten over the hump here, and they're going to beat a good team. Offense looked really good. They come out of the half, all of a sudden they can't do anything, and then the way that this game ends. Like it just, I don't know how this happens so regularly, but it's like, I don't know if you ever watched the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray back in the day. It's like I'm reliving the same Cowboys losses over and over again. It's like the most painful fashion. And
they're the NFC Chargers. That's what I'm calling them now. That's what I really feel like they are, because they play well. They show some promise. It looks like they're about to get over a hump, like you said, and then something bonehead happens and they just find ways to lose.
So I'll push back on the comparison. I want to say the NFC's Dolphins this year. I think Miami's better than Dallas. Don't get me wrong, but it's the same thing in that Miami's now played 3 good teams this year and managed to lose all 3 of those games. And I feel like the Cowboys are in that same spot where you have like this elite tier of teams in the league, and then they're just the next one that cannot seem to beat the tier above them. And this is going back several years now under the McCarthy regime. They just cannot get over the hump against good teams. And I'm not a trends guy. I'm not a PJ Walker. Listen, wishful thinking that his boys are the Dolphins. I would take Miami on a neutral against Dallas, but we're in this scenario now where like you see so many things over time. We're just like, this seems highly repeatable. You know, another example, we'll talk about this maybe a little bit afterwards, but Derek Carr today, right? Derek Carr, the New Orleans Saints had a +5 turnover margin, and they still couldn't cover a spread as a big favorite. Like, he can never cover a spread as a big favorite. He just doesn't do it. It's like, I can make the number on the game, just throw it in the garbage. I don't even know why I bother doing that. If I see Derek Carr as a big favorite, just bet against him. And I feel like it's getting to that point with, like, this is insane for a numbers guy to say, but it feels like it's getting to that point with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I get this. It's like a feeling. It's this feeling of inevitable doom that, you know, I don't get that same feeling with Miami. So I think that's more of where the comparison comes from for me, where it's like, what are the Chargers going to do to screw this up? Not Miami is stepping up in class, and I don't think they're ready for it. Dak just doesn't show up enough in these big spots. I mean, even just scrambling for the 2-point conversion, right? Like, he finds a way to step out of bounds, finds a way to take ridiculous, like, he just finds these ways to do things that are detrimental that somebody that's perceived at his level should not be doing.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It's just like the final play of the game, right? And I get, you know, CeeDee Lamb runs a route that's 2 yards short of the end zone. Why? Dak throws the ball to him 2 yards short of the end zone. Why? Like, just throw the ball in the end zone. You're not going to score short of the end zone. So just throw the ball in the end zone. Like, why can we not do this? And it just gets incredibly frustrating because I don't think, like, we talk about this a lot, the quarterback ranking. Like, Dak is an above average quarterback. I think anyone who wants to argue that he's not, you're just doing it out of spite, or he's an above average quarterback. There's not like, look at the quarterbacks in the league. We're not arguing that. Now, if you want to say, okay, he's not a top 10, fine, I can get that. I think he's in like that borderline top 10 range, but he does have some loser qualities.
Yes.
Right? Where
hard to watch, like bonehead, ridiculous. Like, he's not like as bad as you see like Geno Smith, some of his plays, but I think people expect him to be better. Like, he's, from a statistical standpoint, he's probably right about 10, like in terms of, EPA, CPOE, those types of things. Like, he's there, but when it comes time for that get over the hump moment, he does something dumb.
I mean, look, his stat, he was 29 of 44 today, not like the best completion percentage, 374 yards, 3 touchdowns. He had some important scrambles in the game. He laid it out on the line. There was the one that he got like flipped over at the 2-yard line or whatever, like he was going to die on that play. But he has this amazing game, and the talking point afterwards is actually not how well he played today, because he did play very well. It's just that he cannot get it done against these good teams. And I don't know what it is, man, but it's frustrating as a Cowboys fan. But as a bettor, there was lots of love in the betting market, in the I'll call it the sharp community. There's like, let's just say I know a lot of sharp people who really like Dallas today. There's a lot of love for the Cowboys. And I was just there and I was like, I don't know. Like, is this going to be the time that they finally pull it off against a good team? And evidently it didn't end up being the case. But we talked Miami KC a bit. We talked Dallas Philly. The other game that was supposed to be the game of the day was Baltimore Seattle. A lot of people were really looking forward to that game in the early slate. And I think the line movement in that game puzzled a lot of people, in the sense that it pushed towards 7 instead of going the opposite way. And this is, again, Baltimore at home, just dismantling another, I don't want to say, a quality team. That's a good way to describe Seattle. Like, not, above average quality team. And they killed them.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this happened last year too, where Seattle got off to a surprising start. People started getting on the bandwagon, and then it's like they're going up this hill, and then slowly and slowly something's like starting to push them back down. And I mean, the Ravens looked pretty damn good today. They couldn't do wrong on offense or defense for that matter. So it was pretty much an absolute shellacking. I'm still surprised that the number ended up where it did. I thought it would go, towards 5.5. I didn't think it would go that far from that, but I was surprised to see some 6.5s earlier today.
So Baltimore ended with 515 yards of total offense. 29 first downs to Seattle's 6 first downs. Seattle had 6 yards per play. We're going to see next week, and we'll talk about this game when it comes up because they play Cleveland next week. But Baltimore has really destroyed Detroit and Seattle at home, made them look like nothing. Those are heavy zone coverage teams, and Lamar has some pretty drastic splits this year when facing zone versus when facing man, and they're going to get the highest man coverage defense in the league next week. I'm not sure it's going to matter, but I like the Ravens. I think there was a lot of people who doubted them at the beginning of the year, because if you look at their schedule and the way it played out in the early going, they got CJ Stroud in his first career start. They had Joe Burrow dealing with the injury. They had Anthony Richardson. Actually, it was Gardner Minshew in that week 3 game. They had, Cleveland with a backup quarterback, PJ Walker. Was it PJ Walker or was it Deshaun Watson, like in terrible form? Pittsburgh, like there was a lot of bad quarterbacks they played in a row. And now I think we really got to say that, like, Baltimore is right there. Like they are legit at this point.
Yeah, their defense is second only in terms of EPA per play to Cleveland. And like you said, they've had some step ups from what we would expect good offensive teams to be in the Lions and the Seahawks, and shut them both down pretty handily. They're definitely a force. I don't know what Lamar's looking like in terms of MVP. I'm not a big individual
Mahomes is
futures
still
guy.
favored, but I honestly think Lamar actually has the best chance. I wouldn't bet him now off of you don't want to bet him.
No, right.
Although he didn't
Yeah.
have like a big, I don't think he had like a big statistical game today, right? It was mostly rushing touchdowns. He didn't throw a touchdown today. Lamar Jackson didn't
No, I
throw a
don't think he
touchdown.
did.
It was Huntley that threw it.
Yep. To OBJ for his first touchdown in forever, and OBJ with another dumb fumble type, just bad, but it didn't matter. Like those, when you win by that much, those things just kind of get ignored. But there were a couple games today that were just absolutely like no threat of the other team ever getting in the game. The Arizona game was the other, and
Arizona was like,
I don't even know what their EPA play was today. I gotta look.
I think I recorded it earlier. It was negative 0.77. Listen, like I look at these numbers every week. I actually cannot recall a number that bad. Their success rate on offense was 16%. Like it was they had 1.2 yards per play. Do you know how hard it is to accomplish 1.2 yards per play? If the Eagles just ran quarterback sneaks with Hurts, they would have more than 1.2 yards per play.
Yeah, it's true. Like the Eagles actually ran like their little quarterback sneak play from the 1 just to get themselves some extra yards. Like that. I mean, that was a drubbing too.
Yeah. I like to back some of these quarterbacks in their first starts when teams don't have tape on them or whatever. I'm glad I talked myself out of Arizona. Arizona hit 13 this morning. I was like, holy geez, this is really getting out there with Deshaun Watson. This is correct, free 88. 16%. I did not misspeak. Yep. 16%. They had 58 net yards today. 58. 5-8. Embarrassing. I guess one of the other teams you might have been talking about would have been the Rams, but the Rams, they felt like they were always in it until the fourth quarter. Like there was always a chance. They were hanging around. It was 7-3. It was 10-3. I'm looking at the numbers. I'm like, oh my God, Rippon has been terrible. This offense can't do a single thing, but they were there. And then just as time went on, it fell apart. Now, part of that was Green Bay couldn't score in the red zone. Green Bay had 4 red zone trips. They only scored 1 touchdown. So the game was probably even closer than it actually was, even though the final score was 20-3. But God,
well, there was also DeVito time, right? Like there was also
God. DeVito. Yeah, but Daniel Jones is feared to have torn his ACL. Burn the organization to the ground, man. Like, too bad this didn't happen to them before the deadline. So, I didn't never want to wish for an injury to happen at a different time, but this organization is a mess, man. It's a mess. And I know Daboll doesn't have a lot to work with. They got Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal back today. Just an unmitigated disaster for that team. Like this guy is, I think I put this in the chat today, or maybe with you. I don't know if it was a different friend chat. I'm very careful with recency bias, but I'm pretty sure DeVito is the worst quarterback I've ever watched. Like he's up there at least. He's in the conversation.
He's in the conversation. I still say Nate Peterman. Like that's still my guy. Like for the guy who I don't want to see back there, like I'd maybe rather see a running back out of and just play quarterback like with McCaffrey last year in the playoffs. Like that's how bad Peterman is. Yeah, but
there's a few.
DeVito's close.
Yeah, DeVito's close. He is Ian Book bad. I forgot about Ian Book.
I did forget about Ian Book too.
There's been some bad ones over time. This is going back to the previous game. Good comment from Andrew Rivers. The interesting thing about the Cards versus Browns is the Browns only had 31% success rate, negative EPA per play. Yes, but you also have to account for score effects as well. And it was a game where, let's just say they didn't have to do much offensively. I'm not letting Deshaun Watson off the hook or anything like that, and the offense off the hook. They also lost their left tackle, Jedrick Wills, which is going to be a problem for them going forwards because they're already.
Did he get carted off, or am I confusing? Yeah, that's what I thought.
He did. Right. He had an air cast on as well, so
yeah.
he broke something, fractured something. Yeah, disastrous. Yeah, Giants. I don't even know. Like the Las Vegas team we saw that looked absolutely dead against Detroit. New head coach in Antonio Pierce, but like the stories that were coming out this week about how McDaniel had Pierce run a meeting on his behalf, and in that meeting, Antonio Pierce brought up the fact that they need to play more like the New York Giants, like the 2007 Giants or whatever, the one that beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and McDaniel, like Josh McDaniels, he lost his shit on that. Like, what a loser, Josh McDaniel. What a loser.
Like, don't knock the Patriots. Like, who gives a shit at this point, right? Like, your team is in the absolute fucking shitter. Like, wake up and, like, you need to motivate your guys. And, I mean, like, the Al Bundy of head coaching right there. Like, we won all these Super Bowls. That's great. Has it translated at all? No. Maybe listen to something else. But I also don't put a lot of stock in, like, the Antonio, the Pierce era, like, and causing all of these turnovers and things like that. You played against DeVito. Like, put it in context.
There's always some context that needs to be applied. So how much of this was the Giants versus how much of it was the Raiders? Honestly, it was probably a combo of both. Like, Aiden O'Connell looked good today.
Made some good throws.
Way better than his first start, that's for sure. But yeah, is this what we're going to see going forwards? I don't know. Honestly, maybe they just hated McDaniel so much that they weren't playing for him. You could draw your own narrative, basically, at this point, one way or another. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know about that. Someone in the chat said that Sam Howell looked good today, which I'm going to push back on that one a little bit, because in like the top 3 stressful moments of the day for me, one of them was Sam Howell rolling to his right on the 10-yard line. And I don't know if he was trying to throw the ball away. It was at the end of the first half, but he just threw it directly to a Patriot in the end zone. Like, just brain, like, vomit inducing type of interception. And Howell has a little bit of that in him still. So Washington gets it done with the 20-17 win. I don't honestly know what we could take away from either of those teams. I think that both of those teams are just hot garbage. We get to see New England in Germany next week, which that'll be a treat.
I'm not going to say that I feel bad for Mac Jones, but even when he does make some good throws, like, his receivers either have no separation or they don't hold on to the ball. Like, he's not in a great position to succeed for even when he does his job.
Yeah. It could have been one mistake. I'll look back on it afterwards and we'll see. What did the Patriots generate in terms of sacks today? 3 for 17. So still not a great. I mean, that's a lot lower than what Howell's typically done in the past. So a little bit, but yeah, I mean, that was the confusing handicap of the week for me. And granted, the market did come back the other way, so it's not like there wasn't Washington money, but everyone was fixated on, like, the defensive line for Washington, right? Oh, they trade Montez Sweat, Chase Young, but, like, did anyone realize, like, who the Patriots are rolling out at receiver today is a disaster? Like, they're that when they don't have Kendrick Bourne and Devontae Parker, Juju Smith-Schuster actually made some good catches today, like good hands catches, but they don't have the receiving core. It was disastrous.
I didn't foresee a good outcome to the point where you take the defensive line, being decimated by trades, and then who's Mac throwing to? It just, I couldn't come up with, a side that I liked enough. Oh, geez. I did not see that stat. Now I do.
CPOE. Yeah. I mean, the team is a mess. They're dead last in the AFC. What I actually noticed today, and I want to spend some time doing this week, is looking at the discrepancy between the NFC and the AFC. So the AFC won all these interconference matchups today, except for this one. This was the one that they didn't win. And I'm very interested to see if there's like, when these matchups are happening, if the NFC is consistently playing below expectation, because I just think that there's so many better teams in the AFC right now, and this may not be reflected in the market on a weekly basis.
So in the AFC, like if you have San Francisco and Philly at the top of, the NFC, right? Like, to me, I think there's a pretty big drop off after that. I think you can make the case that with a healthy Burrow, you could have KC, Cincinnati, Miami, and Buffalo equal or above those two other teams. And then you still have teams like Jacksonville and Baltimore. If I didn't say Baltimore, I meant to. There's so much average or worse, but their records are better because they're in the NFC.
How many
Seattle might be one of
above
those teams?
So how many above average teams, so 16 or better, come from the NFC? San Fran, Philly, Dallas, Detroit, Seattle. I mean,
that's kind of it. But I think Seattle is smushed in with a bunch of other teams like Pittsburgh, the Chargers, Cleveland. You know what I mean? It's not like they're a strong. There are other teams that you can make a case are probably equal or better. So, yeah, I mean, even like Pittsburgh. There's no other NFC teams.
Yeah, the Saints would be the other team that you could argue is in that mix, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, I'll just go back to today. One possession game, they had a +5 turnover margin against the Bears. So like the Saints are the definition of mediocre, in my opinion.
And I think the three stone cold worst teams are clearly in the NFC. Even looking, with their quarterbacks now, Carolina, Chicago, and Arizona, right? Like, they're the clear probably bottom three. Am I missing somebody there? Probably not. And now you put the Giants there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you put the Giants there. So by
it's
far,
true. The Giants are down there. I was gonna say, like, that's it. And like, honestly, if Stafford doesn't come back, you might as well put the Rams down there as well.
Yeah,
because all that was going for them was their offense, and that ain't going anymore for them. Challenging. We didn't talk much about Stroud. The Texans Bucks was a very good, entertaining game.
It was entertaining. Like, the dynamics were very fun to watch. Like, who's going to kick, who's not going to kick. Like, are they going to continue to go for two? Like, where it was interesting. Yeah. So SNES Super Nintendo Chalmers. Great nickname, by the way, for those who don't get the Simpsons reference. But no, New England is actually like better than these. Like, New England just closed 2.5 at 3 at home against Washington. They were valued as better than Washington on neutral. Like, I'm not saying that I necessarily agree, but New England is still a step above all of these terrible. Like, they're a step above the Giants and Carolina. Low 20s.
Like Carolina, they actually had a great defensive performance again today. Their offense blows. This is coming out of the bye week. Carolina's offense coming out of the bye week played the Texans and the Colts, and they generated less than 4 yards per play against both of those defenses. Like, forget about Carolina. Chicago, you never know what you're, -5 turnover. Tyson Bagent's going to make some throws, and he's giveth and taketh away, like, all over the place. But yeah, it's that there's just some bad teams in the NFC, like terrible, terrible teams. Pinnacle will be opening up momentarily here, and we will bring the odds up on screen, talk through the games for Week 10 in the NFL. As a reminder, if you haven't hit the like button down below, hit the like button. Do us a favor. It helps people find our content in real time. YouTube goes through live videos, and they're like, a lot of people are liking this one. We'll serve it up to some other people in the sports betting space. So if you can take 2 seconds and just smash that like button down below and make sure you're subscribed here to Forward Progress, that would go a long way. 66 likes right now out of 196 watching. The ratio is not good enough. So please just do us a favor for now. I just really briefly wanted to talk about Houston and Tampa Bay today because it was a great game. And you think of both of those teams and the offensive coordinators, and you're like, the run, pass. It's been a problem for them. Houston won that game today because they were trailing by enough that they had to get out of whatever the hell they were doing on offense, which is the same stupid shit that Bobby Slowick's been doing for a while now, and throw the ball. And like, I don't understand what the hell this team is doing. Like, if you're the offensive coordinator for the Texans and you're watching CJ Stroud throw the ball downfield week after week, why are you so committed to these early down runs? Like, I will not understand. Someone has to give me the reason, like explain it to me. Like, every running play that team runs just feels like a complete waste on early downs.
It is. And somebody that, I don't know if you're connected to, funny name, spreadsheet version. Somebody typed something about, why are they not kicking us? Like, the kicker is out, the kicker's hurt. And then he's like, well, why don't they don't have a second kicker? This isn't spreadsheet. Spreadsheets, like, sometimes these things are a good thing because it forces coaches to do things that are not suboptimal. Like, hey, you have to do this now. Same thing with playing from behind. Like, throw the fucking ball. Like, you have decent receivers. Stroud has been nothing but solid, if not better than solid. Like, what are you doing? And you can't run the ball effectively anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, he has a good supporting cast. Robert Woods is out right now. They're not missing a beat. But like, yeah, like Andrew, really appreciate the stats you're bringing up in the chat today. But average depth of target is almost 11 yards, CPOE 13.6. That's nuts. Like, that is just carving up a defense. And there was a big injury. Jamel Dean got hurt for the Bucs today. He had to leave that game. So there's like a little bit that was working in their favor. But Houston, if they could just get their head out of they don't have the defense to go far, let's be honest. But if they got their head out of their asses, it would remind me a lot of the early Deshaun Watson years for Houston, where they were like relevant enough to be competitive in the playoffs. And there was that game against, I think it was Mahomes, right? Where they were up like 24-0 in the first quarter or something. And then they blew that. But that's what I see as the ceiling for them. But it just feels like, beating a dead horse at this point. Sorry, PETA, but that's what it feels like in talking about the Texans. And sorry to those that didn't cover the spread with the 2.5 today, but that was absolutely the right play by the Texans in kneeling at the end of the game there. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, that did feel dirty. Like, whether you deserve to be there or not, fine. But then you get there, you can't kick there.
You can't risk it getting blocked and going back the other way for 2 points.
Yeah, you just can't.
I mean, it never happens. So but you just don't risk it. There's no point in risking it. There's no point in risking it. All right. Let's get into the week 10 card. Odds courtesy of Pinnacle. Once again, if you do sign up to Pinnacle in Ontario, please use code HAMMER, HAMMER. And I highly recommend using Pinnacle as one of your sports books because they have great odds. It's just a great book in general. Thursday night football. I'll be doing a live watch along here on Forward Progress. One might say a magical live watch along of this game. Take that for what it's worth. I'm speaking in, not literal, not in the literal sense right now. For those who know, they know. Bears and Panthers. Market right now. Chicago Bears laying 3 minus 116. So pretty heavily juiced 3. And the total of the game is 40. I'm kind of disappointed. My first reaction is I'm disappointed that we're at the point where this is a 3.
Yeah. And you might get Fields back this week.
I don't even know that it matters. I mean, Bajent is a walking turnover machine. It's a short week. I don't know if Fields is going to play, but Bajent is better than Bryce Young. Like
You're
He
not
is.
wrong. I mean, it's so sad. But
Bryce
it's
Young is
true.
terrible. It's
Like if I have a
terrible.
player that I want to start this week, I'd rather start Bajent than Bryce Young. You're not wrong. Ugh, that's disgusting.
It is a good number because it's at the point where like I don't really know what I want to do here. My first gut instinct was that 40 felt a little bit low for the Bears right now. They do seem to move the ball up and down the field well. Both quarterbacks are agents of chaos where they're prime for like a pick six, fumble six at any given moment as well. So that was my first immediate reaction was 40 felt a little bit low, but it's a Chicago game in November. I don't know that it's going to get bet down. The possibility of wind at Soldier Field is right there. Honestly, feels just like a good number to me.
Yeah, it feels fine. I don't know if the Bears had any significant injuries today. I don't think they did. But anyway, this number doesn't make me want to do anything. I was hoping we'd get a cheap Bears based on what the market was looking like before today, and that just didn't happen.
Yeah, again, I don't run my numbers until later in the week, so I'm just speaking from, I'm speaking just from my perception and my gut instinct on this game. But if there were to be Carolina money, I'm probably going to be interested in Chicago. Like we've given the Carolina offense way too many chances at this point, and they just are what they are. Like if you're going to go back-to-back weeks out of your bye, new offensive play caller, and not be able to move the ball on Indianapolis or on Houston.
Indianapolis, like that's an important fact there. Like that they can't get anything going against that team is a problem.
Yeah. Somewhat disastrous for them. All right, moving on. Game number 2 here on the board. It's the Frankfurt game next week. It is the Indianapolis Colts and the New England Patriots on a neutral field. Spread in the game, Indianapolis -2, total of 43. Indy -2, total of 43. Okay, let me break this down here really quickly. Market line today on a neutral would have probably been pick'em. Is that fair to say?
I think New England probably half a point favorite. In all honesty,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
So a pretty decent sized adjustment. The Colts offense was pretty awful today. I mean, they scored 2 defensive touchdowns. Kenny Moore with a couple pick sixes, but overall 3.5 yards per play. I mean, they won the turnover battle and generated some defensive scores. Aside from that, the offense was stuck in the mud. It's an ugly game, but is a big adjustment warranted one way or another? I'm not sure. Connor says he saw a look ahead. That was New England -1.5.
The total didn't move much in the Carolina game today. And then the New England Washington game, even with the trades, went from 40 to 42 at one point during this week, and then back down to 40.5 for 40. I don't feel good about this. And maybe I'm overreacting to what I saw out of both offenses today, but even 43 seems high. I know Indy's been an over team for the most part, but with the receiver issues that the Patriots are having, I don't know if those guys is
Bourne's out for the season. He's got an ACL tear, but Devontae Parker might be
Parker
back.
could be. Yeah, Parker could be. I just don't. It's actually the lowest number in the market right now is Pinnacle. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I actually have the opposite reaction. My initial reaction is that this feels like an over to me as well. Someone said this in the chat, RW fan, whether depending, I'd play this over 43.5. It's just that we get the Patriots coming off of this game where, again, their offense is terrible. I mean, granted, it was a lot of just terrible third down conversions, but are they going to fix that going forwards? I don't know. 3 of 12 on third down. It does feel like a game to me where, the Colts defense has been consistently getting exposed. They played what I consider to be just an anemic offense, and it made them look a lot better than they are. But we probably get back to them getting exposed again next week. I'd love Devontae Parker to play the over, because the current receiving core is a disaster.
Yeah, I don't have a strong feeling anyway about this game. But like you said, it is a big adjustment in terms of the market going towards the Colts.
So a week-to-week adjustment towards the Colts. The Patriots might be a dead team. That's my only concern.
Yeah.
They might be a dead team. All right. Let's go to Baltimore. AFC North matchup. It's the Ravens laying 5.5 at home to the Cleveland Browns. Total in the game, 38.5. Ravens and Browns, 5.5, 38.5. God, I love this Ravens team, man. This is right on where the look-aheads were, I believe. There's part of me that thinks that I just don't know that Cleveland can score with Baltimore. Ravens ran on the Browns the last time, and Lamar was efficient in the pass game. He was. But he has struggled more against man over the course of this season and his career. I feel like the Ravens are just going to, most likely the Ravens get that, is my feeling.
So how did Watson look in terms of his arm strength today? I didn't see a lot of this game, admittedly.
He made a throw downfield to Amari Cooper, which was good, and traveled quite a bit through the air, but Cooper was wide open. Someone said this total needs to go down, and that I do agree with. I don't think it's crazy at 38.5. I honestly don't think it's crazy, but gut feel is that this is it's going to be tough for this Cleveland offense without Jedrick Wells. They lose their left tackle. They're already without their starting right tackle. It's not an explosive offense at all. Someone mentioned it earlier, the numbers today against Arizona at home offensively. If you're putting up those type of offensive numbers to Arizona, the likelihood you're going to be putting up better offensive numbers against Baltimore is low.
Yeah, 31% success rate, 63% series conversion rate against the Cardinals. Not great. Watson was positive EPA per play, but I don't know. This is this is just a tough spot. I think the Ravens will take money here, though.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It feels good. I kind of just want to handicap this game a little bit more. Cleveland, I have a really bad read on. I could see this being an ugly game that is Cleveland is hanging around, but lose 20-10 type of situation. I don't hold out high hopes for their offense next week. That's the big thing for me. I think that if there's one thing that I think will happen in this game, it's that Cleveland's offense will struggle. So you either, if those, team totals aren't really posted yet or anything like that, but that could be a way for someone to play it if they just wanted to. Cleveland team total under later in the week. But my gut inclination, especially with where the number is right now, 5.5, if Cleveland's going to take money, it goes all the way to 4. And that seems just super unreasonable that's going to happen, because everything in between is somewhat dead.
Yeah, this is so Baltimore, Seattle today was 44 or 44.5, depending on where you were looking, right?
Yep.
There's 5.5 point adjustment. And I know it's not apples to apples, obviously. The composition of the teams is different, but last week it opened at 5.5. Cleveland, Seattle, similar, but you also have a compressed total, meaning lower. I think 5.5 is a reasonable number. I just also think that Seattle having so much trouble to score, I think it's going to be even worse for Cleveland. And I like the look of under team total for what Cleveland's probably going to be at like 17 or 17 and a half or whatever that number is. It might be 16 and a half, probably, now that I'm thinking about it.
Should close similar to where Baltimore closed today against Seattle. Who did you have better going into the day today? Seattle or Cleveland?
Cleveland slightly.
Yeah, same with me by almost a full point. So that makes the opener make a lot of sense, actually, at where it is right now.
For me, it was a half a point. So that's.
Yep. There was a pretty split opinion game with Seattle-Cleveland today. Seattle-Baltimore, excuse me. I imagine we'll see something similar next week, honestly. I can already see the points that will be raised for both teams. Same with this next game that we're talking about. San Fran and Jacksonville. In Jacksonville, both teams coming out of their bye week. San Fran -3 plus 101 on the road. So Jacksonville at home +3 -114. Total 44.5. This one is really hard to unpack because you had Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel out for San Fran prior to the bye week. I would imagine both are returning. On the other side of things, for Jacksonville, you had Tyson Campbell, Andre Sisco out on defense. Zay Jones was out on offense. I'm imagining these are going to be like the full complements for both of these teams going forwards. I don't know. I'm going to be saying I don't know a lot tonight. I know San Fran has looked bad in recent weeks, and there's probably a lot of people who may have identified this as the spot where they bounce back. What I was going to say is that I don't know that Jacksonville is not actually very good as well, because offensively, they've been a disaster this year. Not a disaster, but like league average. But defensively, they've been really solid. I kind of feel like this is going to come off 3.
I got to look at this Jacksonville's who they played. When we look at their defense, Pittsburgh, New Orleans, Indy, Buffalo, they gave up 20, but that was neutral. Atlanta, 23-7. Houston, Kansas City, they played them tough defensively, and Indy put up some points. But that's not a very, other than Buffalo on the road, like that's not a very strong offense. Like I look at a lot of average in there.
I have it 27th. So I think they've played the 27th
toughest
hardest
offensive schedule.
Yeah, offensive schedule, but the 8th toughest defensive schedule. But to that point, why don't we look at San Fran? Because San Fran has played, like, coincidentally,
Sure.
Look at the wheels coming off of San Fran in recent weeks. Cincinnati, Minnesota, Cleveland, like those being the Cleveland game was a different story. But like the start of the year, when everyone wanted to anoint San Fran as the Super Bowl champs, that was after they beat Dallas on Sunday Night Football. Prior to that, they played Arizona, the Giants, the Rams, and the Steelers. Like, if I'm looking at San Fran, if we want to criticize by schedule,
no, you're right.
I have them, 5th easiest opposing offenses, 3rd easiest opposing defenses.
Yeah, this is, I do think this probably comes off of 3. I'm thinking through the total. Is it high or is it low, or is it just kind of right?
So it feels low to me.
It feels low. Am I like still reacting to what Jacksonville was last year?
Exactly. That's what's going through my head right now.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm not quite there on Jacksonville being like this defensive stalwart of a team. I'm not there yet at this point. I'm still in like a little bit of the offense is going to get it together post-bye. So maybe it's not reflected in the season-long numbers just yet, but it does feel slightly low. Like, honestly, if you ask me just top of my head, make a number in San Fran, Jacksonville total, I'd probably say 45.5 top of my head. somewhere
that's
between a couple of key numbers. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, this is one I have to evaluate a little bit more because it feels low, but it might not be. It might be my reluctance on priors.
Okay. Let's move on.
We haven't had a single one where we felt like the number's really going to move on either a total or a side.
It is getting harder. So for those who are watching live or listening back afterwards, earlier in the year, there's more opportunity to deviate from these numbers, right? Because you have smaller samples. Sometimes I'll go out on a limb. Occasionally you'll hear me say stuff like, Cincinnati, I love them, and throw out your priors on this team, but that doesn't happen a lot. Right now, we're going into week 10. We got a lot of data. It's very easy to make numbers on these games unless there's a lot of uncertainty. Maybe this is one where we can potentially find something, although looking at the opening, I'm not sure. Pittsburgh is on extra rest, and they remain at home. Green Bay coming to town. Honestly, nice little, big franchises, Packers and Steelers. Steelers minus 3.5 plus 104 at home. The total is 37. So where I'm having trouble this week is, I'll tell you right now, I would love to bet Pittsburgh in this game. This is why I always tell people bet numbers, not teams, right? Because I think Green Bay is still a catastrophe. Not on top of that, Christian Watson today, I never seen a guy leave a game for chest, back, and head injuries all on the same day. He literally went, I don't know if he's got a concussion or not, but I saw the Christian Watson injury report, left today's game with chest, back, and head injuries. I don't know if he got fed through like a meat grinder or something like that. No idea how that's possible, but that happened. I just don't want the Steelers to win by margin. I want, I'm with Connor in the chat. Wish we got a 2.5 here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Green Bay looked a lot better than I actually think that they are today. I'm certain my raw number on this game, when I run it, I don't want to say certain, I'll never say that, is going to have like Pittsburgh still above 3.5. But how many situations are they winning by margin? I don't know.
This is another. The total, I'll start here. The total feels right to me, to the point where I don't feel like moving it one way or the other. Maybe I need to watch back this Green Bay game today, but how much am I really going to learn about the game today versus the Rams and Jordan Love? And has he finally taken at least like even a half a step forward? Because going into today, Green Bay was one of my bets today, I'll be honest. And then I got an early under at 42, which was never there was never a threat there. I hated betting on Jordan Love. Like, I absolutely hated it. It was like so cringy to me.
Yep. I was opposite. I'll be honest with you. I was in the other boat where it's like, no, like Green Bay is going to win by 5 or more. Like, what are we doing here at this point? And they obviously did it on the backs of their defense, but the Packers are not very good. If Christian Watson is out, they're less explosive. Now, Aaron Jones being there helps. Definitely. It's better than just pounding A.J. Dillon up the middle a lot. Aaron Jones is actually a versatile player. But the one thing I say about Pittsburgh is that, we say, like, how do they keep winning games? And it's a valid point. Like, they've gotten very lucky this year. There's so many, like, historically bad metrics for them for a team that has this record. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt in some capacity, because they have, in this season alone, have played San Fran, Cleveland, Baltimore, Jacksonville. They've played the Houston offense. Like, when you look at the games that Pittsburgh has succeeded in this year, Week 3, Monday Night Football, they beat the Raiders. Week 7, at the Rams, on the road. Last week, at home to Tennessee. Like, when they've stepped down in class, they've looked the better team. They've won these games. They won all those games by more than a field goal. So it's not inconceivable that they do it here. Like, this is Jordan Love on the road in Pittsburgh, hostile environment, terrible player. I think Green Bay will draw money in this game. Maybe I'm a little bit optimistic, but I think there's too many people out there that just are gonna see that half point as being super valuable in the early going here.
No, I
But
think you're right. I mean, what, like you said, right? Like it's you're asking Pittsburgh to win by 4. They do not have a super strong offense or anything like that. So it's not like they're not a team that feels like they have blowout potential. It just feels like they grind out close games, and that
right.
their distribution is just this really compressed thing where it's between 3 on either side all the time.
It does. And for that reason, I do think that ultimately we do end up seeing some Green Bay money, but I think Pittsburgh is probably the side. I'll run it unless there's some sort of like weird matchup that I'm not accounting for right now. Patrick says seems like a -3, -120 type of game. I could see that as well. But
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not buying into the Packers just yet. I'm really not.
And I see Cottage, right? Like Love against a good defense is ouch. Yeah, I mean, probably. Like I could see, forcing some mistakes here, and Love is a problem. Like he's not that
Le-
good
Levis is better than Love. Like what we
right
saw from
now.
Will Levis on
Lit-
Thursday Night Football was a poised quarterback throwing downfield. They mustered 16 points on the road at Pittsburgh. Like that's a better offense. Tennessee's offense with Levis is better than Green Bay's offense with Jordan Love. I'll
Yeah,
take that to the grave.
and that's where like this is a 2016 game. Love is a battlefield.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of Will Levis, just happens to be the next game on the list. Yeah, Levis is better than either of these quarterbacks. That's probably correct. Tennessee goes out on the road to Tampa. We get Tampa Bay laying 1 point at home, total of 39. Tampa -1, total of 39. I can see that I think that there's going to be appeal for Tennessee. Now, there's a few injuries. Traylon Burks had a scary neck injury last week. One of their corners got hurt as well. Sean Murphy Bunting, I think, got hurt in that game as well. We'll keep an eye on the status of those. I honestly think that this line is fine. Like it just all around fine. Some may be like wrong team favored, but really you're not getting like a super valuable bet at the +1. But if you want to buy into the AFC versus NFC stuff, got an AFC team in Tennessee versus an NFC team in Tampa Bay, maybe it is wrong team favorite type of situation. I like Levis, don't get me wrong, but the more and more tape that teams start to see on him, the more challenging it's going to get for him to produce. And unless he's like a CJ Stroud type, which he could be, I mean, he already looks way better than Bryce Young.
Yeah, he does.
Then it'll be a little bit easier. But gut feeling is that Tennessee takes money in this game and moves out to a favorite.
Yeah, I was hoping we were going to get an opener around 38 for the total, but that didn't happen. It's I find it hard to back the Bucks at all.
I think the Bucks are shit, man. I know that they came close to winning today. I find it hard to back the Bucks. Like this is Mike Vrabel against Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
Vrabel is the guy that never loses off of a bye. This is not a bye, but it's extra rest. He's the guy that everyone loves to back as an underdog, just like Tomlin as well. It's only a 1-point dog type of situation. But I really do think Tennessee is going to flip to a favorite here. Whether or not that's my final position on the game, I don't know. But I think that Tennessee is trending up and Tampa is trending down and has been trending down for a while.
Agree with that completely.
All right. Keep it moving here for next week's games. We only got one other game opened up yet for now, but I'll talk through the rest with Clive here as we go through. So we got Washington at Seattle on the board right now. Seahawks -6 is the early market. The total is 44.5. This is Steven, you say Washington Seattle total is intriguing. I'm interested in what you think about that. What part of it is intriguing? I think that Seattle -6 is short.
So do I. I was just going to say that.
I think Seahawks are going to take money in this game. Good bounce back spot, in my opinion. Like this is like, Detroit coming off of the loss to, although you know what? Detroit came off the loss to Baltimore, and then the market faded the shit out of them the next game against the Raiders. That closed 6.5, which was unusual. But I do not think highly of Washington at all. Period.
No, and I'm not going to overreact to Washington winning on the road against New England when New England had absolutely no weapons whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, Washington was a suspect defense, even with the pass rush that they had. I don't know. This feels like a really good spot for Seattle and Geno to kind of carve up Washington a little bit.
I mean, Washington is also coming off of, with the exception of that Philly game a couple weeks ago, the 4 other games that they've played outside of that Philly game were New England, the Giants, Atlanta, and Chicago. Like, they're probably looking better than they actually are. People have now forgotten maybe that they've traded away a couple defensive linemen. Like, I think stylistically today, they ran into a New England offense that was without their top 2 wide receivers and isn't very explosive in the first place. I think this is a different story now for Seattle. Seattle's been struggling with these man coverage teams. Washington's been playing a lot of zone this year. Their defensive line sucks. Their secondary sucks. Like, Seattle, to me, been on a pretty tough run. I mean, 3 of their last 4 games, Ravens, Browns, Bengals. I'm maybe not as in tune with what the market will do with this game, because I don't have a feel for either of these teams necessarily, in the sense that I thought Seattle might draw money this week and they didn't. But yeah, that's feels low.
The number's already moving
up.
Yeah, so now it's like juice towards 6.
It's the forward progress experience right here. There was ever a reason to watch this show live on Sunday nights, it's so that you could bet your early numbers if you share the same opinion as us.
Yeah.
If you share the same.
I don't know how I feel about the total.
44.5. First, it's kind of counterintuitive to say this, because typically when you like the favorite, you're typically going to lean towards the over, but it actually feels like a Seattle and under type of game to me.
Yeah, I'm more thinking, I think Seattle team total over as opposed to like a game total over. I think that's where I would probably lean if I was to go that route.
It is kind of scary because Geno's he hasn't been very good this year, really. But Washington's defense, I think we've forgotten how bad Washington's defense is because of today.
That's my point. Like, they really aren't good at all. I mean, and they've had a relatively soft schedule of offensive opponents. Giants, Atlanta, Chicago, Arizona are 4 of their games.
It's been roughly league average because they've also played Buffalo, Philly twice. Yep. So they've had roughly a league average schedule. Seattle, and kind of in the same boat as well, where I don't think one way or another there's going to be a big adjustment. But yeah, I just don't think the Commanders are very good, man. I really don't. I think that we've put them in the spotlight a couple times with the Eagles this year. Maybe just a team that they match up really well with.
I think they just match up well with the Eagles, and that's just been a consistent thing for almost 2 seasons now.
Yep. Steven in the chat says, I thought the total was high. Had something closer to 43 in mind. Feels a tad high to me. Not crazy, but a tad high. My guess would be Seattle money, under money. This is kind of the one that has stood out to me so far. Yeah. Okay, that's it for the games that Pinnacle has opened. Remember, 3K limits at Pinnacle. So when they do open stuff up, they want to have a decent opening number. We'll get to some of the other games here that are taking place next week and just give some random thoughts on some of these games that are on the board as well that might have opened elsewhere. Houston and Cincinnati, we're going to pass on talking about this game as I am with is Buffalo in action next week? Yeah, they're Monday Night Football against Denver. And the only reason we're going to pass is because, honestly, tonight's game, Sunday Night Football, is going to have some sort of impact on that number as well. Minnesota and New Orleans. So this got posted quickly and then got pulled off the board. But we'll use the number that was posted really quickly, which was New Orleans laying 2.5 on the road and the total at 40.5 in this game. I have some thoughts. And the first thought is that it's a little bit unfortunate to me that these teams are playing each other next week. And the reason why is because I'd like to fade both of them. The Josh Dobbs thing today, credit to the guy. I don't want to take anything away from Josh. Like, I'm happy for him. Come in, win the game. I was especially rattled that I bet Jaren Hall first TD at 28-1, and he got concussed on the 1 yard line trying to run in a TD. That was not a great moment for me. Josh Dobbs comes in. We're very quick to forget how pitiful he looked when he came into that game in the early going. He got safetied, fumbled away the ball as well. Did not look great. I want to watch this game in detail tomorrow because I have no idea how the Falcons did not realize that this guy was just rolling out to his right on every play.
And scrambling. Like that was his only offensive, that was it. It wasn't a big formula.
And more tape has come out on Dobbs this year where teams that have had a full week to prep for him have fared very well against him. Atlanta prepped for Jaren Hall this week. They didn't prep for Josh Dobbs. They prepped for Jaren Hall. And that, in my opinion, listen, I can get the other side of the argument. And listen, Showtime, it's a good point, right? He was put in an impossible position. Hard to blame him. It's true. He didn't know the playbook. He didn't know players' names. Like, he got thrust in there and had to do something. But ultimately, I feel like we might be overrating Minnesota a tad. Now, with that said, and also remember, like, KJ Osborne had a massive concussion today on the field as well, where he got knocked out cold. That's like another injury to a wide receiving core that can ill afford additional injuries. But New Orleans, man, this team, like the coaching matchup, Kevin O'Connell is miles better than Dennis Allen. And I don't really know what to do with this one. I don't really know what to do with this one.
It feels like a click and pray, but it also feels like the right side is New Orleans, and you hate to do it. But at 2.5, Dobbs was like a mirage today. I don't think he has that same level of success, next week. I think 40.5 is a high total. I think I'd look to that, maybe get bet down a little bit. But other than that, I think it's just going to be another ugly game.
Yeah. Jamil says, what if Jaren Hall's back, as unlikely as it may be? If he's back, he's not starting. Not next week. The only reason Dobbs didn't start this week is he got traded midweek and didn't know the plays and anything like that. But he's the guy now going forwards. He's the guy.
I think the intent was always for him to play this week.
Yes. Cottage says Justin Jefferson is eligible to be back. I did believe that he was still weeks away from playing, though. I could be wrong on that, but I'm almost certain. Maybe someone might want to correct me in the chat. I don't know. I mean, I struggle with this one. I don't really want to back Minnesota off of that performance, but like, man, New Orleans, like I mentioned, I'm going to mention it for the millionth time this show. +5 turnover margin against Chicago. The game is close. Like, how does this happen? It can't.
I gotta look at the box score there. How many field goals they missed today?
Just no team missed multiple. Both teams missed
No?
one field goal in that game. They both hit the upright, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, that's what
Both
I'm
kickers
picturing,
hit the upright in that game.
Got it.
But like Derek Carr was not
Still
sacked.
not acceptable.
He was not sacked in the game. They had a +5 turnover margin. They ended up with 4.9 yards per play against Chicago. Negative EPA per play.
A lot of Taysom Hill on the ground.
They're using him more now, which they should. It's not like the days where they had
They
Drew
should.
Brees
Derek
and they had
Carr
to take Drew Brees
sucks.
off the field to bring Taysom Hill in.
Yeah.
It's a different story now.
Yeah, I mean, if Shaheed's not blowing past defenders, there's not a lot of explosivity on that offense.
No. Okay. A couple other games we're going to skip over are the Jets Raiders, with the Jets playing Monday Night Football, Chargers Lions with the Chargers playing Monday Night Football as well. But there's a couple more that'll be interesting. The Giants Cowboys number has opened at recreational books at Dallas -15.5, with a total anywhere between 39 and 40. I'm going to be honest with you. Somebody said it that number is insane. Somebody earlier, and I don't remember who it was. It actually feels short to me.
It's still not enough.
I do not think that this guy. Not only do I think that DeVito can't score, I think DeVito might actually get outscored by the Dallas defense. Like, maybe I'm insane, but if it's Tommy DeVito, which I don't know who else it could be, honestly. I don't know who.
No, I thought I saw Tyrod Taylor is at least 3 weeks out.
Yeah, he is. He's a guy like broke ribs. Like,
what about Eli? What's he up to? I think he's still in the area, like me.
No, at this point, they might as well just lose every other game, right? There's no sense in them winning anything. The season's over. Tyrod's on IR, so he's at least 4 games. Daniel Jones is it's got to be DeVito unless they sign someone off the street to play. And this guy cannot QB.
So this was at Breck Books, like before this week, 10. I don't think 5.5. I know where we are in the scheme of numbers. Like 5.5 is still not enough. Like,
yeah, like
this should close 17.5 or worse, in my opinion, if DeVito is the starter.
I'm gonna actually give him a fair chance and like watch the full game, because I was mostly in tune with Dallas Philly today. Wildcat to Barkley all game. Mike Kafka suiting up, sign a bus driver off the street. Like, these are great comments, but and there are a lot of trends that point to these guys making their first start that have had success in the past. But Clayton Tune went on the road against a good defense in Cleveland, and he got shelled. And not only that, it's not like there's anything DeVito's going to do. He's now played. He's been in the last 2 games. There's lots of tape to watch on this guy. They're going to figure out what to do here.
What's the offensive game plan that you're going to create to make DeVito succeed? Like, who cares if Dable has a week? Dable could have 6 months. It doesn't matter. Like, you could have 6 months to prepare for this individual game. He's so bad.
Clive, they brought him into the game last week, and Dable refused to throw the ball with him. He just made him he's like, no, this guy cannot throw the ball. Like, we're not throwing the ball with him. Like, if that's the confidence level from a couple weeks ago, I mean, he's a rookie out of Illinois. Like, what would you expect from this kid? I honestly feel like first and foremost, just think about it from a market perspective, right? Who's betting the Giants early in this game? No one's betting the Giants early. It's a last minute bet. So I think it's going to to move up. DeVito was a backup at Syracuse. I mean, I don't know. I just subjectively, Cowboys fan here, yes. But I feel like if you bet minus 15.5, you're probably going to end up with a good number. Unless there's some miracle. Like, what are the free agent who's going to sign a free agent quarterback on a short, like, it's not going to happen. Great comment here, by the way. Cowboys money line, aka the Fezzik special. He'll never live down that Purdue. He also tweeted today, like when the Chiefs were up 21-0 about the Dolphins closing as favorites. I'm like, oh man, yeah, essentially market being wrong, which he, is very interesting considering he did go after someone else for saying that the market is wrong.
Yeah,
do you not find that interesting? Anyways,
but it's okay because it's Fezzik, I guess. Like all knowing, all being. What were the yards per play numbers for that game? I mean, other than a couple of mistakes, I thought it was relatively even between the Dolphins and the Chiefs when I was looking at stats earlier. Like it was an
even game. Like if efficiency wise, success rate wise, it was a very, very even game. It was the defensive score. That was the difference. That was the difference in the game. What number will there be buyback on the New York Giants? I honestly couldn't tell you. Because I can't imagine New York a buy at 20. Yeah. Listen, I mean, there's got to be a price where you would bet any team. I'd probably bet the Giants at 21. 21 and a half. What
you can't
number?
Even get it out. Like,
if you're in the chat right now, what number? Seriously, what number do you need to bet the Giants? I just want, and you might like them at the current price. That's fine. I'm not going to mock you or anything like that. What number do you need to bet where I say I'm giving you this number? It has to be an auto bet. What is that number?
21 and a half. 18 and a half is where I start thinking like, all right, I really got to look at this. Like, 31.
So for those listening who are not seeing this in real time, there is a very wide range of numbers here. 21 and a half is the very common one, which makes sense. Not that you're getting like a key number in 21, but
yeah, like it matters.
Daisy is most optimistic at 17 and a half. Derek, I'm going to ignore your comment at 65 and a half because I don't think it's real. I think the largest I saw was the OPMG at 31 and a half. I'm definitely clicking plus 31 and a half. That's insane territory. But if it's DeVito, man. And by the way, producer Jason, you just mark this. Like we'll clip this when DeVito somehow wins in Dallas. I can already see it. But honestly, they've teed off on bad quarterbacks this year. Think back to earlier in the year. They crushed the Giants earlier in the year. That was a Daniel Jones game, never mind. But like when Zach Wilson came to town, they smoked him as well. Like they've done well against bad quarterbacks this year. This is their MO. Pad the stats by facing bad quarterbacks. Mac Jones.
Yeah. So my only fear if I'm a Cowboy fan or if I'm a Cowboy backer in this particular scenario is that Dak Prescott only plays the first half.
Yeah. Are there early first half numbers posted? Let me see. No, I can't really find it anywhere right now.
No,
not anything that's live.
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, actually, later for that.
Yeah. Let's go 5 extra minutes here, just because I think it's an interesting game. Let's talk a little bit about Lions and Chargers. We obviously haven't seen the Chargers play yet, but all the early markets have the Lions favored on the road at the Chargers. Now, this is like a bad scheduling spot for the Chargers, right? Like they're playing Monday Night Football, and then they have a short week against a team coming off of a bye. Like, what are we doing here making these schedules? Like, how does this happen in 2023? Horrible spot for the Chargers.
What injury situation for Detroit? Who do we expect back?
So prior to the bye, who was hurt for Detroit? Jonah Jackson on the offensive line was hurt, their left guard. In the secondary, they were missing Jerry Jacobs and Kirby Joseph. So like no one that was like a substantial impact.
Right.
But they're going to get some, like the Lions are going to take money, man. Well, it depends on how the Chargers look, but my number in the game is a little bit less than current market number. I like the Jets. I talked about that on Pizza Buffet this morning. I think there's a decent chance that the Chargers are going to look like shit tomorrow night, especially with Josh Palmer injured. They don't have receivers.
I could see that. I have a hard time getting this number to 3.5. Like, in all honesty, right? Like,
it won't get. If at that point I'm buying the Chargers.
I'm sorry. I mean the Chargers Jets. Like, even like with my numbers for
yeah.
tomorrow, I have a hard time getting to 3.5.
Yes. I'm with you.
This is tough. Jesus.
Yeah.
What's the total? 48, 49?
48.5. Yeah.
There you
is
go.
The early total. Is the early total.
I think the Lions take money. Yep.
I mean, I think so too. I'm just judging by the chat right now. It seems like everyone is in all aboard the Lions train for this game, which, will happen. One more game that I glossed over. Falcons at Cardinals. We do have some early rec books that are posting lines here, which is the Falcons small favorites on the road. So anywhere in the range of -1.5 to -2.5. The total anywhere around 42.5. Probably going to be a Kyler Murray start next week.
I mean,
does that change? Like, this is what I was going to get at. So, first of all, Atlanta had Mac Hollins got hurt today, so they're already without Drake London. But the Arizona offensive line got decimated today. DJ Humphries, their left tackle, got hurt. Their right guard, Will Hernandez, got hurt. Like, there were some major issues there. But Kyler, like, he's coming off an ACL. Do I want to bet that first game back? Like, I don't know. Probably not. I hate both. I want to bet against both these teams. This is like Minnesota, New Orleans for me.
I kind of want to bet against Atlanta and their head coach at every turn possible. Like,
he does seem like an idiot, Arthur Smith. Like, I'm sure he's coaching football a lot better than I am.
Well, sure.
But
I just I do want to bet against him. I mean, like, if it's 1.5, that does feel, in all honesty, a little light, even if it is Kyler Murray.
Scott says I have been spite betting Arthur Smith. I mean, he is. I remember when people thought he was like a great offensive mind in Tennessee, but as a head coach, my God, I don't see it, man. I just don't see him.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. This has to be really low total too.
Yeah, it's in the 42 range, 41.5, 42, some 42.5s out there. Slow.
Kind of thought it'd be a little lower, but the Cardinals defense really is that bad, so it's not that surprising.
I don't know what the game plan is going to be for Kyler. Like, this is like a massive uncertainty game, It's, I can try to put a number on it, and I will. I try to put a number on every game. Am I going to have any degree of confidence in what Kyler Murray is going to look like after a year with like no receiving weapons? Michael Wilson was out today. Offensive line issues. Seems like a recipe for disaster, if I'm being honest. But is Atlanta going to be the team that does it on the road? I don't know. They are better with Heineke. I do believe that. But he also has like a few throws every game that are just gonna, like the Jimmy G special. Yeah, you're like, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah, well, that's what I like about Atlanta more. I mean, I didn't play them today. I don't know that anybody. I don't think I know anybody that did. Did you? Do you know? Nobody in our chat did, right? Like nobody was on Atlanta. Were they?
I think everyone I know was on Minnesota today.
Yeah. All right.
Like everyone I know. Yeah.
I mean, 1.5 feels fine. Like I have more interest in Atlanta than I do Arizona.
We might have. I do like buying on these teams that like get wrecked by a backup quarterback that comes in mid game and they just don't adjust to him well for some reason or another. But God, I don't like the Falcons at all. I'm holding futures on the Falcons. Divisional futures, season win total. So for the love of God, Atlanta, just keep winning games. But they're painful, man. They're just painful.
They're so hard to watch.
Yeah. Stoppable object meets movable force right here.
So what's the best game on the schedule next week? Well, there's a couple good ones.
Lions Chargers is a good game. Okay, like, you know, I'm going to wake up to watch Colts Patriots. Don't get me wrong, 9:30, but I'm not going to be as in tune with it as I was. Ravens Browns, good game. Bengals Texans, intriguing. 49ers Jags,
that's the
solid game.
Yeah.
Solid game. Lions Chargers, solid. Those are the ones. God, Raiders Jets is in prime time, Sunday Night Football. Broncos, the primetime schedule sucks next week. But
so
if you're into primetime watch-alongs, this is the spot to be. Thursdays and Mondays.
How much, if at all, do you upgrade your market rating, do you think, on the Raiders from what they came into this week versus anything?
It's really hard. So I personally don't update anything myself. You know, I just pull data from this week. Instinctually, yeah, they go up a little bit because well, you know what? Like Aiden O'Connell is definitely not an upgrade over Jimmy G. I don't believe that, but the entire dynamic has changed for that team.
It has.
Like maybe the upgrade is just that they're not coached by a moron anymore. And the verdict's still out on Antonio Pierce, but maybe that's the upgrade. It's just that like schematically, it's not an idiot on the sidelines.
There's a hair of upside. Like it's actually possible that somebody's not going to minimize the talent that's on the team.
Right. Right.
I mean, Aiden O'Connell was
he's very efficient today, man. But he
like 0.3 EPA per play. Good success rate. It's still the Giants, but good question.
Better holding Falcons futures or Saints futures right now? Both of them are coached by a moron. Well, I shouldn't say that. Like Arthur Smith is probably a good OC. Dennis Allen's probably a good DC, but they're like,
they just have no business being head coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. I would kind of rather have Saints futures personally, but
I think I mentioned on the show 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh no, that wasn't here. That was in chat and Pizza Buffet a couple weeks ago where I said I think Saints divisional futures would be a good buy. So if you would have got them 2 weeks ago, yeah, I'd rather have those Saints futures. But
yeah. Nope. That's gonna do it. We're gonna end on a low. Saints and Falcons.
Ugh.
Rough way to close it off. Appreciate everyone in the chat again this week. Honestly, doesn't go unnoticed. Makes it a lot easier to do these shows with you guys as part of it here on Forward Progress. So we do appreciate that. If you're new here and you're not involved in the chat, or you watch every week and you don't chat it up with the rest of the guys, no problem at all. Just make sure that you are subbed here on the Forward Progress channel and make sure that you do give us that like, smash that like button if you can down below. Tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern time, G-Stack George, surprisingly in good spirits. He's live with Cleve TA and Suma. They're going to be breaking down the week that was and do a quick little look ahead to Monday Night Football and the Week 10 slate as well. And of course, Monday Night Football watch along. I'm back in the seat here tomorrow night. Chargers, Jets. I got some bets on the game. I'll throw out some props before the game starts as well. So join me for that for myself, Rob Pizzola, for Clive Bixby, for producer Jason Cooper, and for our sponsors, Pinnacle Sportsbook, trusted sportsbook for the past 25 years. This has been Forward Progress, Week 9 recap and Week 10 look ahead. We will catch everyone right here back on the channel tomorrow. Have a good night, everyone.